Honorable Members of Parliament, it's your judgment. Now, we think that technical incompatibility, the manual ministerial reporting and approval processes are technically incompatible with the velocity of digital finance. Now, then there are other things like the constitutional order, socioeconomic scale. Parliamentary records indicate that approximately 5 trillion shillings in external funding and between 20,000 and 50,000 Ugandan jobs are tied to organizations, and these are currently at risk. Now, also the international standings, like the IMF Article 8 of free movement of financial flows, then the East African Community Common Market Protocol on free movement of capital. All this is going to be affected. What happens to these international obligations? And then the risk-based approach that is required for Uganda to stay on the Financial Action Task Force grey list. What happens if we are going to have blanket regulations instead of the risk-based approach that is recommended? So Uganda's obligations set out in various international conventions and treaties with bodies including the IMF, World Bank, IADB, IFC, etc., whose articles of agreement, including those relating to privileges and immunities, are going to be affected by this bill. So what I was, in conclusion, Honorable Chairman, what are the strategic recommendations for the legislative requirement? To ensure that the bill is consistent with Uganda's long-term stability, the Bank of Uganda recommends the following refinements. 1. Affirmation of regulatory primacy. Confirm that the Bank of Uganda retains exclusive authority for the regulation and supervision of the financial sector, supported by Financial Intelligence Authority for anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism matters. These institutions already are operating effectively under well-established statutory mandates, and reaffirming their primacy would preserve the regulatory coherence and accountability, avoid geo-licensing and inspection, maintain operational independence, and ensure international compliance. And then also retain government oversight on foreign funding for political parties under the Political Parties Organization Act as amended, which already excludes remittances, legitimate financial transactions, and other cross-border transactions between Ugandan citizens and regulated entities. Then the second recommendation that we are making is the explicit exemption for regulated entities. Categorically exclude financial institutions licensed under the Financial Institutions Act, the National Payment Systems Act, supervised by the Capital Markets Authority, from definition of agent of a foreigner. Such institutions are already subject to rigorous prudential oversight and governance requirements, making additional classification unnecessary and counterproductive. This aligns with the Political Parties Organization Act. And then the revision of the funding thresholds. Maybe replace approval threshold with disclosure only requirement for transactions undertaken in a normal course of banking. And then also exempt interbank transactions, shareholding arrangements, credit lines, and FDI, touching supervised financial institutions as exempted under the Political Parties Organization Act. And let's narrow the definition of economic sabotage. So redraft clause 13 to exclude legitimate economic research, remove various criminality liabilities for directors as in clause 23 subsection 3, introduce defense of good faith, exercise of mandate, compulsion of statute by law, and then alignment with other existing frameworks. Again, channel all oversight through the Financial Intelligence Authority. So, and we also request that maybe you clarify the bill's relationship with the existing financial laws. How do they relate with the FIA, AMLA, NPS Act, PPO, to avoid redundant or conflicting reporting lines? So in conclusion, Chairman, true national sovereignty is built on economic strength and financial independence. While the goal of protecting national interests is legitimate, the protection of the Sovereign Bill 2026 as currently drafted risks reversing 3 decades of successful financial development through liberalization that has sustained economic growth. By adopting these technical refinements, we believe that Parliament can safeguard the nation without compromising the world-class financial architecture essential for Uganda's journey to achieve the 500 billion economy. I submit.
Thank you, Governor Tingu Egu.
Procedure, Chair.
Procedure.
Chair, with your permission.
Yes.
Since the governor's time is still has some 5 minutes, could we allow Professor Nwagaba to make some supplements?
If he has. Are you, if he has anything useful to add? Are you not considering this jointly done? I'm sure these are your students. We take it that they want to listen to the professor, but I take it that this is a joint statement. Thank you, and very comprehensive. He has commented. I think, honorable colleagues, let's give a chance to Financial Intelligence Authority to also make a presentation. Now, if a point has really been canvassed very well by the governor, then you don't need to belabor. If you think, especially with regard to your mandate, highlight, no problem about it. But as for anything that you think the governor has ably explained, you can jump. Over to you, Financial Intelligence Authority. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, introduce your team and then you make your
presentation.
Chair.
Yeah. And members of Parliament. My name is Samuel Were Wandera, the Executive Director of the Financial Intelligence Authority. I've come with a team. Immediate on my left is Mr. Barige Cyrus, the Commissioner in charge of ICT, followed by Besige Bright.
Did I hear you well?
Besige Bright.
Okay.
Who is the Manager, International Relations.
Followed by Besige, Director.
Is the Manager, International Relations.
Manager, International Relations, yes.
Followed by Peter Docas.
Yes.
Is the Commissioner Legal and Corporate Services.
Welcome.
And International Relations. Followed by Mr. Wako Livingstone.
Yes.
The Commissioner Internal Audit.
Yes.
And followed by Zaina Bwami, who is the is the Senior Assistant to the Executive Director.
Oh, okay.
Chair, allow me and members add my voice to the invitation which you gave us to come and say a few things on the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026. Chair, the mandate of the Financial Intelligence Authority is given to us by the Anti-Money Laundering Act, CAP 118, and our core mandate is to combat money laundering, financing of terrorism, and profession financing. And Chair, for us to be able to undertake this assignment, we collect and analyze all the financial data to detect illegal activities like money laundering, fraud, terrorism financing, and other crimes which generate proceeds which are laundered. Government relies on this intelligence to maintain economic stability and national security. Chair, we identify suspicious transactions and we track criminal networks, and therefore this helps to reveal the threats to national security, organized crimes, and terrorism financing. Chair, in line with that, we responded to the request which you gave us, and there are 3 areas which we are going to address ourselves. Chair, notwithstanding all what has been said, our presentation was in the likelihood that this bill continues to be enacted as law. We have concerns with specific areas which we think this area should be addressed. And Chair, we have issue on the interpretation of agent of a foreigner and a foreigner. And Chair, we think that this definition should be harmonized with the existing anti-money laundering legislation to avoid ambiguity in reporting obligations by the accountable persons as specified in the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Chair, if the definition remains as it is, it's going to cause a lot of confusion, especially to those entities which has a mandate. And Chair, we have an opinion that there should be exemptions in terms of the entities which are operating in the country. Chair, we moved straight to clause 14. Most of our submission relate to those specific clauses which have effect on our mandate. Chair, there is a registration of agent of a foreigner, and specifically it talks about a person shall not act as an agent of a foreigner unless the person is registered with the department and issued with a certificate of registration by the minister. This is something which we feel that we should have exemptions like the governor has indicated, especially the supervised financial institutions, because there is an elaborate processes which provide for this. So the Financial Intelligence Authority regulates entities that facilitate financial transactions, and this is through working closely with the supervised financial institutions to determine customer due diligence and disclosure of beneficial owners' information. This bill, if remains as it is, will create parallel registration regimes and will duplicate regulatory oversight, which is likely to cause confusion within the operations of the different players. Chair, we propose that the bill should be harmonized with the existing legal and regulatory framework on licensing and registration, especially those under the purview of the supervisory institutions or supervisory bodies. The bill should provide for access to information on whichever definition they will have come up with on foreign agent transactions upon request or spontaneously reported by the law enforcement agencies, because there is a mechanism through which government can get this information within the regulated systems. Chair, the justification is that the supervisory bodies and supervisory institutions are required by law to keep and maintain information which will be including these foreigners and agents of foreigners as per the definition which we would have come up with. So we don't need to have these parallel registration regimes and duplicate the regulatory oversight, since we already have. Chair, we move to clause 21, and this is the one which talks about the declaration of the source of funding. And Chair, this is our cardinal mandate and principle, where we require all transactions, both domestic and those which are coming from foreign jurisdictions, to be declared by those entities which process. And Chair, when you look at the Anti-Money Laundering Act, Section 9, subsection 1, it provides for reporting obligations by accountable persons, and it requires that each cash and monetary transactions involving a domestic or foreign currency exceeding 1,000 currency points, which is equivalent to 20 million Uganda shillings, should be declared and sent to the Financial Intelligence Authority using a Form A, as may be appended to the regulations made by the Minister on the advice of the authority. Chair, we are proceeding to require that all the international wire transfers are also declared. This does not matter on the threshold of the 20 million which I alluded to, but this will enable us to capture all transactions which are destined to Uganda in that requirement. So to make it specifically, currently it is being implemented by the financial institutions, but we are proposing an amendment in the Anti-Money Laundering Act to have it also as part of the provisions. But the banks are complying because we have, through the guidelines, required them to declare international wire transfers. And Chair, that would be the only missing link where transactions of cross-border in nature, which could have a small loophole because the law provided for the 20 million threshold, but like I indicated, we are also able to get all the inflows in the country, and therefore there is no gap in terms of government getting access to all transactions which are coming from foreign jurisdictions to this country, and the funds which are destined to other jurisdictions from Uganda. So all the cross-border transactions are therefore accurately and timely reported and monitored by the Financial Intelligence Authority. Chair, when we move to clause 21, a declaration submitted under section 1 shall be available for inspection at the office of the minister and the department may allow access by payment of a fee prescribed under this act. Chair, access of financial information by members of the public upon payment of a prescribed fee is irregular. It's very, very irregular because it breaches confidentiality clauses, data privacy and protection laws, and the Anti-Money Laundering Act, among others. Access should be provided only to law enforcement agencies for purposes of investigations and to the competent authorities for licensing and regulation by supervisory bodies. It is very, very irregular for a member of public to pay a fee to access private information, which is at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I don't think that should be proper, and that should be removed in the requirements. Clause 22, restrictions on funding from foreigners. Under the Anti-Money Laundering Act, Cap 118, financial flows are not pre-approved, but monitored, and the suspicious ones are the ones which are supposed to be reported or followed by the government. The FIA relies on a risk-based post-transactions monitoring reporting system, and therefore, what the bill is proposing is that This risk-based post-transaction system are replaced with the executive pre-clearance, which will require somebody to seek clearance from the ministry to be able to transact. Such undefined discretion may undermine lawful financial transactions. Therefore, this should be considered for appropriate address. So, Chair, the provisions of the bill should be harmonized with the existing anti-money laundering legislations, such that if this bill is to continue to address those issues of concern. In terms of Clause 24, foreign funding to government institutions, we have no comment. Clause 25 is about reporting foreign funding. The mandatory periodic reporting, which the bill is proposing, is a preserve. For example, it is only the Financial Intelligence Authority which has the mandate to receive suspicious transaction reports, and international standards require that such transactions should be reported in one center. So the bill will therefore create dual reporting obligations for supervised institutions, and therefore there is need for these provisions to be harmonized with the Anti-Money Laundering Act, which allows only FIA to receive, process, analyze, and disseminate this received information to competent law authorities in Uganda. In Section 21D of the AMLA, the mandate is also given to FIA to make the information collected by it available to competent authorities and to facilitate the administration and enforcement of laws of Uganda. Therefore, there are sufficient provisions for government to receive this information if it needs, and this should be aligned. If there are any other gaps, the Anti-Money Laundering Act can be reinforced to cover some of the missing areas which necessitate government to enact another law which seems to be having similar provisions and similar intentions as the Anti-Money Laundering Act. And Chair, when you look at Clause 27, this is the final one we are submitting, assistance to the minister. The bill should be harmonized with other existing laws to widen the scope, which requires ministries, departments, and agencies to accord the minister the necessary assistance for purposes of giving full effect to the bill. Otherwise, as it will contradict other provisions which don't require certain information to be shared as is. In conclusion, Chair and members, we feel that the current Anti-Money Laundering Act as is sufficient to provide the information which this bill is seeking to get by registering and tracking cross-border movement. I submit.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel Were Wandera and your team. Honorable colleagues, yes? Okay, you maintain what is on record. Thank you.
Maybe, Chair.
If the two are conflicting, maintain what is submitted.
Chair, just something to add, which the Governor had explicitly submitted, but Chair, with your indulgence, I could maybe just highlight there are a few of them at the end. Chair, the consequences we call them unintended consequences, which this bill might introduce. And Chair, of course, given the good intentions at the Financial Intelligence Authority, we think that this bill may create some unintended consequences, which will be increased informality and illegal channels of financial inflows into the country, such as alternative value transfer systems, including the use of the hawalas, the virtual assets, and this may obscure the visibility of such transactions by law enforcement agencies. Chair, it has also been indicated that there are likely to be reduction in remittances by Ugandans in the diaspora. There is also likely to be economic disruptions. And Chair, the mandate overlap, which may create institutional conflict during implementation, and the issues of de-risking and financial exclusion, as banks and other accountable persons may consider such persons as high risk. So these are some of, Chair, the consequences which might be created by enacting this bill as
Okay.
is.